Welcome back. This is Where You Live with Gene and Tony. I'm Tony Crockett, broadcasting live from the Concierge Landscape Studios, and Gene is broadcasting from the Extreme Exteriors remote broadcasting unit. Let's hear now from the Community Associations Institute. The CAI Minute is brought to you by Start to Finish Maintenance Contractors. Start to Finish provides 24-hour service for all of your home and business maintenance needs. Call Start to Finish at 952-259-1219 for your home, for your business, for your peace of mind.
Are you a member of the Community Associations Institute? For nearly 40 years, CAI has provided education and resources to volunteer homeowners who govern community associations and the professionals who support them. Visit caionline.org to learn more. That address again is caionline.org. CAI helps community association board members by providing online resources, in-person training, and hard copy publications written by association management experts. CAI offers community managers professional development, networking opportunities, and a certification program that's established as the industry standard nationwide. Minnesota has its own chapter of the Community Associations Institute to bring resources and tools from community associations around the country right to your home. Visit CAIMN.com to learn more and become a member of CAI today. Your community and management company will benefit from your involvement. Join the Community Associations Institute today at CAIMN.com and click on Membership.
Well, our last story today has come from the Florida Sun-Sentinel in Boca Raton. The headline is Courts Award $400,000 for Botched Renovation by Condo President. Gene, do you want to tell us the high points of this story?
Sure, I will. There is a homeowner living in Boca Raton and was awarded $400,000 court judgment against what ended up being an unlicensed contractor, because this contractor allegedly falsified invoices that violated the terms of the contract. They ended up charging 3 times what he was actually paying his subcontractors. Now, a general contractor usually makes some money off of a subcontractor, but probably not 3 times.
Usually not triple.
No, not triple. And what made it even more unusual is that the contractor was also the board president of the association. And so, the homeowner, was was a little bit upset with everything as it shook out. Initially, he wasn't. He said he felt initially that maybe there was a greater confidence, because he figured, well, look, if the contractor is the board president, obviously he knows all of the concerns the association has.
Sure.
With having the job done correctly, and so it will be done. It would be done so, but I guess that was not the case. This gentleman did not have a contractor's license, and so there was an issue. You have a case of someone acting as a general contractor without being licensed, and of course there was an issue, and so without there being a contractor's license, I don't think the gentleman also had insurance as well, and so you had an individual who had a botched renovation job to his condominium, and he was left upset and holding the bag.
The article points out that this situation shows why homeowners still need to do their homework whenever they're hiring a contractor, even if they are an association official.
Oh, agreed on. Just because someone is well known does not mean that you need to just forego any kind of background check or search. I think we use a lot of vendors and contractors at New Concepts, but we are requiring constantly proof of insurance, renewal proof of insurance, license, contracting license being shown and prove that permits are being pulled and that everything's being done. So you have to do that all the time.
That's right. And I want to say, if as a homeowner, you're hiring someone, if they try and tell you that it's a lot of trouble to prove to you that they have insurance, that's a huge red flag, because it's no trouble at all. They just call their insurance company, and the insurance company will issue a certificate of insurance that they'll happily send to you. So I've heard that before in the business. Someone will say, well, it's kind of a pain because I have to call my agent, and he never returns my calls, blah, 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 blah. It's not true. It's easy to prove insurance.
Yeah, I agree. But it also gets down to this issue point. Should that bigger issue is, Tony, should that take place? Should someone who is on the board, should they be able to do work and get paid for it in the association?
Well, it turns out in Florida that state laws require the board members to disclose any conflicts of interest when they're serving on the board, but there's nothing that prohibits them from soliciting business from other members. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the status is in Minnesota. Do you?
I think things are silent. It is. I think what we're not talking about, of course, is of course, most homeowner association documents and a lot of state statutes will say if you're on a board and acting in that capacity as a volunteer, you can't get paid for your work as a board member. That's not what
you can't get paid,
about.
And you probably shouldn't contract for work that the community association is hiring out. That might be a conflict of interest.
But if it does happen, I think there is a way around it, don't you think?
Tell us about it.
Well, I think, for example, a couple things that can be done if a board member said, you know what, I've got a snow plowing company and I can do the snow plowing at the association in the winter. Mm-hmm. And they're on the board and they are wanting to put in a bid. I think a couple things can happen. Number one, of course, if the board member were to decide to step down from their position on the board, mm-hmm. no issue. Mm-hmm. If they stay on the board, I think that in the very least, the association board has, I think, a right and a duty to show full disclosure and real transparency, mm-hmm. and they ought to go out to all homeowners saying, we're going to consider bids for snow plowing. And Bob, who's on the board, wants us to consider his company. And I think the board ought to next describe what they're going to do to make sure that there is no conflict of interest.
Yeah.
And that would be, number one, Bob would recuse himself from any discussion and, of course, from any vote. So he's not going to even be there to try and influence discussion, nor is he going to be around to actually vote on whether or not that contract's awarded.
Sure, that makes sense. I also like the fact that Minnesota and Florida both require disclosure of possible conflicts, but it's not dictating to the association whether or not they can hire members or hire board members to do work. It's not legislation that says you absolutely cannot hire anyone on the board to do work for the association. It's saying it has to be disclosed, and I think that's reasonable.
Oh, I think so, too. Have you ever had a situation where you can think of in the past where someone on a board did provide work for the association?
I have not had that situation. The closest thing I've come to is a board member accepted a position with our company as a property manager, and so, of course, stepped down from the board. So there would be no conflict of interest.
Yes, we've had over the years two people who've ended up becoming employees. One was a vice president and the other the president of various associations, and then they stepped down from their position because they took employment. And so, yes, that, of course, takes care of it. I do remember one instance a number of years ago where the board president was a painter, a painting contractor, mm-hmm. and he asked to be considered for the contract, and I know that the board did actually follow those things that we just talked about, mm-hmm. and there was no issue whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. That worked out well.
It really did. But the disclosure is the key point here, because when you fail to when you fail to disclose, when you fail to be transparent, even if you're not doing anything wrong, there's still there is a presumption. There is still
an appearance
of something nefarious. Yeah, and you just want to make sure that you're above board in everything.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah, and so and then of course the other thing that we talked about too, checking references. You can't do that enough. People ought to be checking Better Business Bureau. That's always a good place to go. Of course, if they're licensed, the Department of Commerce, which oversees work and licensing, would be someone to check into. And so those are some good sources, as well as the person's references. I think any contractor could probably give references of people who are pleased. That's nice to have, but that's not exactly. You want to do a little bit more due diligence to make sure that things are okay, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Also pointed out in this article is that most covenants, most governing documents in homeowners associations require that contractors be licensed and insured. So it's a basic standard that must be met.
Yes, and so that's a whole nother issue in and of itself. Even if you're disclosing that someone's not licensed, but you want to use them, in this particular case, you couldn't because the governing documents are stating a prohibition there that must be maintained. Yep. Well, I think that's about all that we've got time for today. Folks, we appreciate you listening to the show. Join us again next Sunday on Where You Live at 10 a.m. Until then, have a great rest of the Sunday. We'll see you next week.